Gerto, good morning. Today's Daf Yomi is Gittin Pei Vav, Gittin 86. Today's Daf Yomi is not Gittin 86. Today's Daf Yomi is Gittin 87. Today's Daf Yomi is Pei Zion, but we are going to start on the bottom of Pei Vav. Amud Pei is on the bottom of 86b. Says the Mishnah. Shnayim Shesholchu Shnei Gittin Shavim. Let's say there are two people who sent. There are two men who had the same exact name, and their wives had the same exact name, and they sent their get. They each sent basically the exact same get with an agent to give it to each of their wives. When this arvo and the two Gittin were confused, they got mixed up. The agent has both Gittin in his hand. He doesn't know which one is for which. So therefore, noticing Shneim was Zu, Shneim was Zu. Therefore, he has to give two to this one and two to that one. Meaning, say he gives them both to each person, and that way, either way, they receive their get. If he loses one of them, the second one is disqualified. So if he lost one of the Gittin, the second one is disqualified because he doesn't know if that one is for this one or that one is for the other one. So therefore, it's not going to be able to work, and so therefore, the get is disqualified. And now we have the next case of the Mishnah. Let's say there are five people who wrote a klal in a get. There's five different people trying to divorce their wife, and they write a klal in the get. And what's the klal? The general rule: ish poni megarish ponis, ponis, va'ida milamata, kulang sherem. So they write, this man is divorcing this woman, and this man this woman, and the witnesses are below. All of them are kosher. And then you have to give it to all of them. How do you give it to all of them? Presumably, you give it to an agent who accepts it on behalf of all of them at the same time. Nora is going to explain what the klal is. It's a dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. But let's say he writes a tofes for each and every one, and the witnesses are below, then we're going to say kulang sherem. Then we're going to say, the one with whom the witnesses are read with, presumably the bottom get is going to be the kosher one. So Mantana, who's the author of our Mishnah, says the author of our Mishnah must not be like Rebbe Lazar. The Rebbe Lazar, given the Amar Edim Mesire Karasi, Rebbe Lazar says that the essential aspect of the get is Edim Mesire Karasi, the handing over of the get. Well, if that's the case, we don't know with which of these Gittin she is being divorced. And so therefore, Rabbi Lazar requires you to know with which one is being divorced, so it's not effective. Rabbi says, no, you can even say it's Rabbi Lazar. I feel Tim Rabbi Lazar. Aimed by Rabbi Lazar Ksiv Lishma. Rabbi Lazar requires the writing Lishma, and the Sina Lishma Mibai. It doesn't require the handing over Lishma. And so therefore, it's possible that this is Rabbi Lazar. It doesn't require that you have intent when you hand it over. Hamisha Shekas Klal. So what is this case? What's the case of the klal in which we said that they're all get? The Mishnah says they're all kosher Gittin. What's the case of tofes, which we already said in the Mishnah that the one from the witnesses are read is kosher. That's it. Just the bottom one, presumably. So tofes is a dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan, that one date on top of the whole get for everyone. That is what is a klal. So basically, they wrote the date at the top, and then afterwards they wrote each specific person's. The way the Torah Yisrael explains it, each specific person's specifics, and then they put down the general rule of the get at the bottom, and that's what's called klal because it's written once for all of them, kolel. And Rabbi Yochanan says, what is as tofes? Tofes throughout the rest of the tractate means like the template of the get, but that's not what it means here. What does tofes mean here? It means that there's a whole bunch of different Gittin specifically, with different dates on each one. And so therefore, he said, this man is getting divorced, and this man is divorcing this woman on this date. And then you write the whole thing for the second one, basically, and then the witnesses sign at the bottom, like five different Gittin, but one witness is signed at the bottom. And so therefore you write the whole get. So that's what it means. So klal is just write one date on top, and then you include a whole bunch of Gittin, and Tofes is one get for everybody. Meaning to say that the Tofes is just the witness is signing at the bottom for everyone. Reish Lakish says, "Afilu zman echad l'kulan nami avei Tofes." Reish Lakish says, what Rabbi Yochanan says is the klal, i.e., one date on the top. Reish Lakish says that is actually the Tofes, and therefore only the bottom one will be kosher. According to Reish Lakish, on top of Pei Zayin Amud Aleph, what is the klal? The cost of anu ploni uponi girashnu nishosein plonis uplonis. So what is the case of klal? There they wrote, we, such and such a person, divorced our wives, such and such, where they write that, where they write these principles. So that, and so then all the couples are able to be divorced with this get because it's clear that the witness is signed for all the witness together and not just on the last line. So the Tofes, according to Reish Lakish, is where you have one date for all of them. And the klal is where the witnesses came at the bottom and said, we are all divorcing our wives. So the Gemara says, Maskifa Rabbi Abba or Rabbi Yochanan, numbers manachol kuan. They'll also a question on Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Yochanan says one date at the top for all of them. That's the klal. Why don't we just say that the witnesses are signing for the bottom person? Also, if we have witnesses who sign after the she'ila shalom in the get, somebody decides to write at the end of his get, hey, you just send my regards to this person. That's disqualified because shema she'ila shalom chasmil. Maybe they're signing only for the greetings and not for the get. So the Gemara says, no, we learned about that. I once had it explained to me, or I once explained it. The position of Rabbi Yochanan, Sha'u pasol, this Sha'u kasher. Meaning say, and the Sha'u, if they write at the bottom without the Vav connecting them, that'll be disqualified because we don't know who the witnesses are. But if they say this Sha'u, if there's a Vav connecting them, then that's kosher. Achanami, they'll say ploni, uploni, uploni. So they're all connected by the same date. And so therefore, according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's going to be kosher. And furthermore, Visu Rabbi Yochanan the Amr is Malako Echav Echad Zeu Tofes, that each one has their own date. That's considered what the Mishnah calls Tofes, and that's a valid. Then the bottom one will be valid. But why would that be valid? Why would the bottom one be valid? My area Mishum Tofes. Why do we say that the other ones are disqualified? Because it's this principle of Tofes. Typically, we have witnesses signing on a different day than in which it was written, because they're presumably all written on different dates. On my mark, Shisha Braid Rav Chisda Rav Ashi, Alchi Amrina Mishmei Rabbi Yochanan, Nechsivu B'cha B'Shaba. So he says no, that it was. They're all written with different dates, but the date is all the same day. Meaning to say, they wrote on Sunday, B'cha B'Shaba, B'cha B'Shaba, B'cha B'Shaba. Amar Ravino Ravash, Reish Lakish, Amar Zman Echad l'kulan nami Tofes Avi. So Ravina says to Ravashi, according to Reish Lakish, who says one day for all of them is also going to be considered the Tofes. I.e., what Rabbi Yochanan says is the klal, Reish Lakish says is the Tofes. So ve'echidami klal, and what's klal? And then at the bottom they say we are all divorcing our wives. So according to that case, we're having two women being divorced with one get. And the Torah says, because of what? Because the Torah says you have to write for her get, and you can't write for her a get and her friend at the same time. So that's obviously not going to be effective. So the Gemara says, the other cause of ploni, giresh ponis uponi, giresh poni. So he says no, because after he wrote the get and included all of them, then he writes this person divorced this woman and this person divorced uponi giresh ponis. Meaning to say he then writes again specifically each one specifying. So the Gemara says, Amalei Ravina Ravashi. So Ravina says to Ravashi, how is this different from that which we learned. Let's say you write all of your assets. So says Ravina Rashi, how is this different from the following brisa? If somebody writes all of his assets to his two slaves, so he says if somebody calls assets to his two slaves, then we're going to say under those circumstances that they acquire it and they are able to free each other. And we learn out the document of emancipation from a woman. And we don't say that that's a problem because you're running two Gittin to the slave at once. So if that's the case, it should be okay to say to Gittin to multiple wives. So the Gemara explains, no, that case was written with two different documents. That's how we explained that case of the documents of emancipation. So now the Gemara says we have a specific brisa like Rabbi Yochanan, a specific brisa like Rish Lakish, and they both have support for their position. Tanya Kavasi to Rabbi Yochanan, Tanya Kavasi to Rish Lakish, Tanya Kavasi to Rabbi Yochanan. We have a brisa like Rabbi Yochanan, Tanya Kavasi to Rabbi Lakish, Tanya Kavasi to Rabbi Yochanan. Chamisha shekatzvu betocha get. If there are 5 people who wrote in the get, ish poni, megarish poni, suponi, uponi, suponi, uponis, bisman echalakul. And then on top of the get, there's one date for all of them. Ve'edamil mata, and the witnesses are below. Kulang sherim. Then it's going to be kosher v'tunas l'kol achas v'achas. And you give it to every single one. That's exactly like Rabbi Yochanan said the call is. But zman l'kol achas v'achas, let's say you have a date for each and every one. Ve'edamil mata, and the witnesses are below. Etcha nikreim imo kosher. That's exactly the position of Rabbi Yochanan. As Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says to me, Revach b'nan possible. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says if there is space between them, then we're going to say under those circumstances it is disqualified. Meaning to say, Rabbi Yehuda says even in the latter case where there's a date for each and every one, then it's only a problem if there's space between each and every get. But then we're going to say the upper Gittin are disqualified because the space shows it's different Gittin. And you don't know that the witnesses are signing on the upper ones. But if there's no space, kosher, we're going to say that even the upper ones are kosher. Because the dates don't necessarily mean that the witnesses are not signing on the upper ones. So that's all like Rabbi Yochanan. Tanya Kavasi the Rish Lakish. And I mean, obviously, the position of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira is not like Rabbi Yochanan because Rabbi Yochanan is passing like the Chachamim there. But we also have a brisa like Reish Lakish. Tanya Kavase the Reish Lakish. What's the brisa like Reish Lakish? Chamisha shekasvu klal b'toch a get. 5 people wrote a klal and a get. And what did they say? Anu poni poni gerashin nishasein ponis uponis uponi pirish poni uponis pirish ponis. Bisman echal l'kuan va'edim milamata. Cool and ksherin, then in those cases it's all kosher. And you give it to every single one. Zman l'kol echad ve'echad, v'revach l'kol echad ve'echad, ve'edim l'imata, edim nikrim imo kosher. Let's say there's one date for everybody, and there's space between each and every one. And the witnesses are below. The ones who the witnesses are called with are kosher. Meir says, Alpha Pishain Revach B'nam, Pasul. So even though there's no space between them, we're going to say that it's disqualified Shazman Mafsikin. But we see from here that Rish Lakish says, what's a klal if you say we such and such a person divorcing our wives, and there's one date for all of them, and the witnesses below, then all of them are kosher. However, if each one has their own separate date and there's a space, then only the one that is called with it is kosher. Now this is like the position of Rish Lakish. The Gemara says, "Rish Lakish, my ear is malakol echad." Why does this brisa say that if there's one day there's a day for each and every one? But didn't Rish Lakish say Zman echalakun is also the tofes? Why are we saying that this is Rish Lakish? The Gemara says, yeah, but when does Rish Lakish say that Zman echalakun is also the tofes? That's where they weren't mixed together at the beginning. But here, where they're mixed together from the beginning, if they were written together, if the get is divided by the basis of the date, then we're going to say it's disqualified, but otherwise we won't. Okay, we're going to start the Mishnah now on the bottom of Pei Zayin Amud Aleph. The Mishnah on the bottom of Pei Zayin Amud Aleph. Shnei Gittin sheksavan zeh b'tzad zeh. Let's say you have two Gittin that are written next to each other. Shnei Gittin sheksavan zeh b'tzad zeh. On the bottom of Pei Zayin Amud Aleph. Two Gittin that are written one next to each other. Ushnayim edim ivrim ba mitachas zeh utachas zeh. And so you have the two witnesses that are written on a big scroll next to each other, and you have two people who write it in Hebrew under one, and Shnayim edim ivrim ba mitachas zeh utachas zeh. Shnayim edim ivanim ba mitachas zeh utachas zeh. So two witnesses who write in Hebrew come from one to the second one. Rashi says the name of one witness is under the name of the first one, and the name of his father is under the second one, and so too the second witness is underneath him. And then they went, Rashi says, and then they wrote underneath them two Jewish Greeks who live in Greece, and in Greek, and they wrote it in Greek like this. But the problem, says Rashi, when the Greeks sign their names, they don't sign like the Hebrews, because the Greeks sign their name. If we would say Yosef ben Shimon, they would write it Shimon ben Yosef, like kind of like some nationalities. They put the last name first, and so they would put the father's name first, meaning to say that that's how they explain Yosef ben Shimon means to say is the son of Yosef is Shimon. And so if that's the case, the Greeks are writing on the second get, on the name of his father signed on the first one. So basically the Greeks are writing it in a confusing way, because they're writing the name of the father on the first one and the name of himself on the second one. And so therefore for the Greeks, they basically are signing the opposite of the way the Hebrew is signed. So that's what we go back to the Mishnah. So two ones written in Hebrew go from the right to the left, but in Greek they're also writing from right to left, but they have the wrong name, or they have the father's name on the right side and the son's name on the left side. So we're going to say the one with whom the first witnesses are read with are kosher, meaning to say only the one on the right side. Let's say one witness writes it in Hebrew and one in Greek. And then underneath that you have one witness in Hebrew and then one in Greek. We're going to say Shnei Psuin, and the Gemara is going to discuss why. So the Gemara says, first of all, why don't we say that the first one is kosher with Reuven, and the second one is kosher with Ben Yaakov? Because you have in the case where two Gittin. So Gemara is saying, why do we say in the first case, if you have two witnesses in Hebrew signed from right to left, why is only the first get kosher? Why don't we say that the one on the right is kosher because of Reuven, and the one on the left should be kosher because it says the son of Jacob is the witness? Didn't we learn Ben Ishponi 8 is kosher? And if you just write the son of the witness is this person, it's kosher. So the Gemara explains, no, the Kasev Reuven Ben Akama, the Yaakov Eid Abasar. Well, on the first one he just wrote Reuven Ben. On the second one he wrote Yaakov Eid. So he doesn't say that he's son of Yaakov. He says he's Yaakov on the second one. The Gemara says, well, it's kosher high Reuven Ben, was kosher high be Yaakov Eid. Why don't we say that that's also kosher? Why don't we say that Reuven's son is kosher, son of? The other one says Yaakov is a witness is kosher. Didn't we learn Ishponi 8 is kosher? If you just write this person's witness is kosher. So the Gemara says, I mean, to just say this guy writes it as he signs it. He didn't sign his name. It doesn't matter. Whatever he signed should be okay. If he just writes Yaakov 8, it should be kosher. The Gemara says, no, the low cost of 8. He didn't write 8 here. He didn't write witness at the end. He has to write 8. By saying the cost of 8, he did write 8, but anyway, it's still no good. Because we know that this signature, it doesn't belong to him. We know this signature, and we know that he's Reuven and not Yaakov, and so therefore we can't say that the left side is kosher. The top of Pei Zayin Amud Beis, the Gemara says, "V'dilma b'shma davu achasam." Well, maybe he's signing it as just using the name of his father. You could sign however you want. as we're going to see in a few moments. Where it says, no, a person wouldn't be so disrespectful as to sign his father's name instead of his own name. Gemara says, but the Doma Simona Shavia, maybe he's using it as a sign, a simon. The Rav Tziyar Kav, Rav used to sign with a fish. Rav Chanina Charuta, he would sign with a palm tree. Rav Chisda with a samach, Rav Shai with an ayin. Rav Bar Huna Tziyar Makus, he would sign with a mast of a ship. So why don't you just say he's using his father's name? And says, no, the person would never use his father's name just as a mere sign. Mar says, "Was kasher high b'shnei edim, even was kasher high b'shnei edim yivanim." So why don't we say that this one is being kosher on the right with the two Hebrew witnesses, and this one on the left is being kosher with the two Greek witnesses? The Tanan get shekasu ivris, the aid of Yavanis, or Yavanis the aid of ivris kosher, because you can have Greek witness signing on a Hebrew get. Well, maybe you want to say, since there's a division of two lines in between, the Hebrew lines in between the Greek witnesses, maybe that's why it's no good. If you filled up the space in between with relatives, that space with relatives is kosher, because the only thing we don't like is airspace. But here we're going to say that there's kosher witnesses in between, so it shouldn't be disqualified. The Gemara says, "Hatani Zeira Shnei Ksherin." So Zeiri says both of them are kosher. So in that case, so indeed Zeiri would say that the left side of the get, which has the Greek witnesses on it, would in fact be kosher. Vitana Didan, and our Tana doesn't want to say that because Dama Gundalas Chasam, the Kula Achadu the Chasinim, because maybe the guy signed it. Gundalas means like a lefty, but maybe he signed it backwards, meaning to say maybe the first Yavani wrote it like the Jew usually writes it. So we don't know, because since the Greeks typically write it differently, maybe he signed it with his first name first, and that way his first name is under the Hebrew first name. And so then we have 3 witnesses or even 4 witnesses on the first get and no witnesses on the second get. And so therefore that would be the problem, and so therefore we say the second get is no good. The Yavani, let's say one witness is Hebrew and one witness is Greek. So the Gemara, so then we're going to say that it's no good. Meaning to say that if the first they signed one witness in Hebrew, one witness in Greek, and then underneath that another witness in Hebrew, another witness in Greek, they're both disqualified. Gemara says, why don't we say that one on the right is kosher with one Hebrew and one Greek, and then the one on the left is kosher with one Hebrew and one Greek? In general, we say one witness Hebrew, one witness Greek is kosher. Atani Zeira, no. So Zeiri says, yes, indeed, both of them are kosher. Vitana Didan, but the author of our mission doesn't want to say that because it says Dama Gundalas Chasam. Maybe he signed it. Maybe the Greeks signed it like the Hebrew signers. And then you have 3 on one and 1 on the other, and you don't have 2 witnesses on it. It's no good. Okay, Shir mixes a get. Let's say he wrote the get, says the Mishnah, Zok the Mishnah. Shir mixes the get because we're with sheni. So he's writing the get, and he doesn't finish it on one scroll, and he writes it on the second page. And the witnesses are below. Kosher, in that case, will be okay. What does it mean when it says the witness is? So he basically goes over to the next column, and that's where he finishes again. That's where the witness is signed. That's going to be okay. Let's say the witness is signed on the top of the page. Let's say the witness is signed on the top of the page, or minat sad, or they write on the side, or me'acharav, or in the back. But get pashut, if it's a straight get that's not folded, like we saw there was a get makusha for a coin, in all those cases it's possible, disqualified. Ekif rosho shalzeh, betzad rosho shalzeh. Let's say they put there's 2 gittin written on the page, and the 2 tops of each get are facing each other, kind of like this. Then we're going to say, and the witnesses are in the middle, and both of them are disqualified. Sofa shalzeh, betzad sofa shalzeh. Let's say they're facing each other, but the 2 ends are facing each other. And the witnesses are in the middle. then we're going to say the one whom the witnesses are read with, that's going to be the one that's kosher. So we're going to say get shekasu ivris ve'edav Yavanis. Let's say there's a get that was written in Hebrew and the witnesses are in Greek, or Yavanis ve'edav ivris, or Greek and the witnesses are in Hebrew. One is written in Hebrew and one is in Greek. Kasav sofer ve'ed kosher. Or if the scribe writes it with one witness, it's kosher. The Gemara is going to have to say what that means. Ishponi aid kosher. Let's say he writes it as Ishponi. Let's say the witness signs it as Ishponi aid. That would be enough to say it's kosher. Also, he says Ben Ishponi aid. That would also be kosher. Ishponi, Ben Ishponi, below Kasav aid. Or let's say he wrote Ishponi, the son of Ishponi, and he doesn't write aid on it. That's also kosher. This is what the Nikiya Adas, the people who are the most special in Jerusalem, the clean ones, they would write it like this. That's how they would write it. Poni ben poni, but they wouldn't write 8 at the end. What does Rashi say? That Noagin Shaloshon Kutsara, they always spoke in abbreviated language. Lo Yuchosmin 8 Ella Poni ben poni. They wouldn't sign it as witness, they would just sign it as Poni ben poni. Some of the greatest minds in Jewish history, their comments are just so brief. Like when it comes to my Rabbi Kiva Eger, the Golyone Yasha, so brief. The Vilna Gaon, just like a little line here. Or the Kotzker Rebbe, very, very small thing. So the shorter the better. That's what the Nikiya Adas and Yerushalayim would do, because people have patience for short, they don't have patience for long. Kasav Chanikasa v'Chanikasa. Let's say he would write the nickname, meaning to say Shem Wavai Shal Mishpacha Kula. So meaning to say the nickname of the whole family. Instead of writing the name of his father, he would write the family name, or the way there everybody is known. So like he wrote Avram ben Ezra, and Ezra is not his father, but Ezra is not Avram's father, but he's like his grandfather, and the whole family is connected to him. So under those circumstances, we're going to say it's kosher, and we don't say that since he's not really his father or his father's father, but it's just the family name. We're going to say it's like a get, that it's kosher still, because it's known as the Shem Mishpachta. I will stop the recording here. Wish everybody, hold on, good Shabbos.